We now come to a magical mystery tour of your brain, and what I'm going to do is give you a little history of how we discovered this little magical thing that I'm going to tell you about, which is your brain cell. Now, when we first discovered about the brain, all we really knew was that it was a kind of a 3.5-pound lump in our heads. And it was kind of grey, and people didn't particularly think it was very beautiful. But when we got the first microscopes, and we started to look through, what we found was that the entire greyness was dotted with tiny little dots, almost as if it was grainy like sand. And then when the microscopes got more powerful, we saw that those little dots were centers with tiny little branches. And then, in the modern era, when we got the electron microscopes and we could really look in, what we found was that each one of those dots was the most extraordinarily complicated, really beautiful thing you could imagine. Your brain cell. What we've got up here is an image of one of your brain cells. The brain cells, of which you have a large number, and we're going to explore that number in a moment, look really like spaceships or stars, fantasy creatures. They're incredibly small and astoundingly complex. Absolutely amazing. Each one of them has a center here, a cell body, and many branches, little tentacles that branch out, almost as you begin to imagine like the center of a mind map. And on each one of these branches or arms, these little red dots here are the connection points where your brain cells connect with other brain cells. Now, these are the things that people think they lose 1,000 of every day and do not. These are the entities that sort out your memory and your creativity. And the question we want to address first is, how many brain cells do you think you have in your head? How many would you estimate? Trillions? It is an enormous number. And I'm going to put it across the top here. The number of brain cells in the average brain, your brain, is this number. It's 1, 0, 0, 0, comma, 0, 0, 0, comma, 0, 0, 0, comma, 0, 0, 0. It is an enormous number. I mean, really enormous. And another way of writing that number, a million brain cells, is to write the number 10 with a little 12 on the top of it. The number above the 10 says how many zeros there are that follow the 1. So this number here is 1 followed by 12 zeros. So we say that's 10 with a little 12 above it, which means 1 followed by 12 zeros. Now that is so big, that number, that I want to give you an imagination right brain idea of how big it is, the number of brain cells in your head. If you think of 10, that's 1 followed by 1 0, and instead of thinking just the number 10, you think of a pile of bricks 10 high. And then you add a 0, 10 to the 2, that's 100. Pile of bricks 100 high. And then you add a 0, that's 10 with a little 3. That's a pile of bricks 1,000 high. And then you add a 0. That's 10 with a little 4. That's a pile of bricks 10,000 high. By the time you've got to 6, you've got a pile of bricks 1,000,000 high, and you keep on adding zeros until you get to 12, and that's the number of brain cells in your head. Phenomenal number of brain cells. Phenomenal. If you did lose, which you don't, but if you did lose 1,000 of these a day, it'd be the same as standing at the edge of the ocean, taking out a cup of water in the morning, going back home to work, to school, whatever, next morning going into the ocean, taking out a cup of water, and at the end of your life saying, well, I'm certainly going to have emptied the ocean. In other words, 1,000 brain cells lost today doesn't make any difference at all, and you don't lose them anyway. So you've got more than enough. Now what then gets exciting is, you've got all these brain cells, and you've got all these branches on all these brain cells. So millions and millions of brain cells with tens or hundreds or thousands of branches. And along these little branches are little red dots which are connection points. And these connection points, the connection points, are where currents go through your brain and build up little patterns. So a key word on this note here becomes patterns. The number of patterns that your brain can make. And what I'm going to do is show you a new picture, which is actually going to be the patterns that your brain makes and how the brain cells make them. What actually goes on in your head and how it happens. And magically here again, this is a picture of lots of brain cells' arms. Now just to remind you, we had that beautiful brain cell looking something like this, with all its arms and the little dots along the arms. And here are some of the arms. Now what happens in your brain is that all the tentacles, all the branches on that big beautiful brain cell wrap around each other. Thousands and thousands wrapping in the kind of biggest hug you could imagine. And what happens along each branch of each brain cell, and these little connection points, is now shown here. Here you see a branch of a brain cell, and here's a branch of another brain cell, and a branch of another brain cell. And these little mushrooms here are those little red dots that you had on your first brain cell. So we're now looking with an even more powerful microscope at the branches of your brain cell. What happens in your head is that an electric current goes down the body of the brain cell, down an arm, and we now look with the microscope and we see this electric current coming along this arm here. And it goes along, goes along, goes along, goes through here, and suddenly connects through one of these little points, one of these little mushrooms, triggers off some chemicals, and it sends it into another brain cell's branch. And that electric current goes on and then goes out through this one, sends it through another brain cell, and you get this amazing pattern building up in your brain. Now these patterns, the patterns here, and the key word again is the pattern, or the patterns, are your memories, are your thoughts, are your creativity, your storage, your habits, all those things. So it's worth making a note. Habit, memory, thought, or thoughts, because that's how your brain, it seems, traces all these habits, memories, and thoughts that you have. Now what we've just discovered in the brain field is that if you have one of these thoughts, little pattern fires off through a whole mass of brain cells. If you have the same thought again, the same pattern triggers again, and it goes through faster because there's less resistance. Same as if you're walking through the jungle or whatever. The first time you walk through, you've got to fight your way through all the material. Second time you walk through, it's a little bit easier. Third time you walk through, you've started to make a little path. Fourth time it's easier, and if you and a lot of other people keep going through, you get a road and eventually a motorway, and everything goes faster. Same thing in your brain, which then means something really interesting. You can decide which ones to trigger through, because you can decide, I'm going to remember this. And if you review something, what's going to happen to this little pattern in your head? If you review your study, review work you've been doing, what's going to happen to this little pattern in your brain? It's going to get easier for it to happen again, which means your memory is going to get better. So you suddenly realize that you can begin to create your own memory. The thoughts you put in here actually are physically recorded in your brain. So we now come to something really intriguing, and that is habits. Right? Thoughts that you have in there which are regular. For example, I can't. I can't do this. I can never do this. I'll never be able to do this. I have never done this. If only, but I never will, and so on. What we do here is look at a habit. And you've got in your brain this enormous habit. And you decide, I'm going to change that habit. And as you decide it, you start off another little pattern in your brain. So you've decided to change it. You've got this year-long big habit here. You've decided to change. And you get to the situation where you normally do this habit. What are you going to do? Probably. Are you going to do what you decided to change, or are you going to do the habit? You're going to do the old habit, aren't you? Why? Because you're used to it, and it's a big pattern in there. So you do the old habit, and what do you say to yourself? Oh, darn. Oh, shoot. I'm never going to succeed. And so what are you doing when you say never going to succeed?
Improving.
Building up the old habit again. You're saying, see, I knew I'd never be able to do it, so it really is true. Check it and review it. I can't. What should you do if you make the mistake? Try again next time. So you say, that's okay. I made a mistake. So what? I'm going to change. So you put in another little thought and another little image and another little practice. And you get to the situation again, and what are you going to do? Probably.
Think about it before you do it.
Yeah, you think about it, so you build up a little bit here again, and then what's going to happen? You're going to go back to the old habit. And what are you going to say when you go back to the old habit? Shoot, there's no way, I'm never going to be able to do it. So you build up more of the old habit, right? So you ever going to succeed? No, because you're going to keep on building this old habit, saying, I'll never succeed, and even though you're trying to build this one up on here, you keep saying, I'm never going to succeed anyway. So when you make a mistake, what should you say? Try again. How interesting. What an interesting mistake. That was a really good mistake. And now I'm going to build this pattern up. And you make a mistake again, and you say, how interesting. What an interesting mistake. I'm going to build this one up again. And you make another mistake and say, boy, these mistakes are getting really good, but I am getting better in terms of what I want to do. And you keep building in this positive, allowing yourself to make the mistakes, building in the positive. Don't beat yourself up when you make the mistake. Keep throwing in the positive, and what eventually happens? The positive gets bigger and better than the old habit, and then suddenly, what happens? There's no more old habit. You've changed to the new positive habit. So you suddenly realize when you look into the brain cell that you can actually now shape your own future. Whether you're 3 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old, 10 years old, 80 years old, doesn't make any difference. Your brain works the same way. What's also exciting is that the more you learn new things, the more of these little red connection points actually grow on your brain cell's arms. So you get more and more and more possibilities for more and more patterns. So it's all right to make mistakes, right? Don't give up. And it's very important to think positively. Now I want to just give you a little question there. An example on positive thinking. There was a golfer, one of the world champion golfers, and he came to a certain tournament, and when he got to the 5th tee, lined up, and his first shot went straight into the water. And he came around second time in this tournament, got to the same tee, the 5th tee, lined up, straight into the water. And it became a big joke. People were saying, wait till old so-and-so comes around, it's going to go into the water. And sure enough, third time around, straight into the water. And then it became a really big deal. You know, the fourth time he came around, there were big crowds waiting there, everybody waiting to see him to go into the water. He said he wasn't going to. Smack, he went straight into the water. He practiced for a year positive thinking, right? Concentrating on not going into the water. He came back to the same tournament a year later, after a year of practicing this positive thinking, not going in. People said to him, you know, how are you going to do this year on the 5th tee? Ha ha ha. And he said, I'm not going to go into the water. I've been practicing for a year, positive thinking, it's going to be okay. And when he got to the 5th, what do you think happened? How many people think he went into the water? How many people think he didn't go into the water? Half and half. Well, I'll tell you what, he went straight into the water, better than he'd ever done before. Now, why had he done that? What happened? What do you think was going on in his brain? Glenn? Because people convinced him he was going to go into the water again, that's part of it. Because he was concentrating on not going into the water. So what was he concentrating on? The water. And it was amazing. You could see him when he got up there. You know, he got up, and you could see through his body movements what his brain was thinking, what the patterns in his brain were. And he worked on them for a year. He's kind of up there, and you could see him kind of thinking, now that's the water over there that I'm not going to go into. I went into it 4 times last year. Everybody thought it was kind of a big deal, and I've been practicing for a year not going into that water over there. So this time I'm really not going to go into that water right over there. Okay? And as he wound up for the shot, even before he'd hit the ball, you could hear his whole body saying, oh, damn. And he went straight into the water, perfect. Because he had been positive thinking on what? Water, which was the negative. So positive thinking, real positive thinking, is positive to what? Positive to the positive. Positive to the positive. So don't try and positive think, I'm not going to keep making mistakes, or I'm never going to do that again, or I'm not going to go into the water, or I'm not going to fail in my exams. Think, I am going to pass in my exams. I am going to be better as a person. I am going to improve my physical health, my mental health. My memory is going to get better. Not, I'm going to stop forgetting, because then you're going to focus on forgetting, and you'll build up forgetting patterns. And your ability to keep on trying is amazing. If you make mistakes, you're designed to make mistakes. Your brain is a trial and error mechanism. Makes a mistake, checks what's going on, tries again, makes another mistake, checks what's going on until it builds up this positive success. And some people have tried, well, let me ask you a question. How many times do you think Thomas Edison tried to get the light that we're now all in operating before he finally got it? How many mistakes? How many failures?
100.
Lots. How many?
100.
100? 10,000 times. With people saying, you'll never do it, don't be so stupid, what do you mean getting light from a piece of metal? You know, don't be so ridiculous. But he was totally positive, right? He'd try an experiment, it wouldn't work, and instead of saying, I'm not going to do it, he'd say, well, that's interesting, I now know that that doesn't work, so I won't try that again. He'd try something else, didn't work, another mistake. He said, boy, that's interesting, so that doesn't work either, that doesn't work, so I'll now try this. And he tried that 10,000 times. Now, do you think at the moment that you could actually try, that you have it in you, to try 10,000 times and keep failing? And still keep going? Do you think you could do that? No. I mean, that's a bit much, isn't it? Well, the thing is, you can, and you've already done it. And you have done it incredibly positively, and the fact that you're in this room now proves it. Because you were a baby, right? And you could not walk. You were stuck right down there, you know, on the ground, and you saw all these big people hanging around up there, and you thought, it'd be nice to do that. It'd be nice to kind of get up there, right? So you try, and you right? Now, do you see babies saying, oh, boy, you know, how stupid, I'm not going to try that anymore? No, they say, well, that one didn't work, and then 6 months later, right, they're getting nearly there, and they fall down again. What do they do when they fall? Get back up and try again, smile, laugh. You know, they're now on trial 2 million. Still haven't even done it once. But they see other people, so they, you know, positive thinking. Up they get, and they nearly get there, and kind of, nearly there, and down they go again. Smile again, trial 10,000 million, and finally, you know, bang, they're up there. Because they positively thought without any of this negative. So if you can already do it, you've done it. Thousands, millions of trials, your brain has already tried it. So in terms of anything else you want to do, you can do the same. And the only question that remains on your potential, on the possibility, is how many of these patterns can your brain make? What's the number of patterns that your brain can make? And that's what I want to leave you with. This is a big number we're going to be talking about. About 20 years ago, they started to work out with all your billions of brain cells and these thousands of tentacles and these beautiful cuddles and these tens of thousands of little connection points and the millions of patterns, how many total patterns the brain could make. And the first number they worked out was 10 to the 100. 10 to the 100. That's 1 followed by 100 noughts. And a gigantic number. That number is as big as the individual number of atoms in the universe as we know it today. And that's the number of patterns they worked out that your only human brain, right, this amazing thing you've got, could actually make. What's interesting about that number is that it's wrong. And it's wrong because it's too small. They checked it again, looked in the microscopes, checked how many patterns the brain was making, averaged that out over the whole surface and interior, and found out that the next number was 10 to the 800. 800. So that's 1 followed by 800 zeros. Is the average number of patterns, habits, thoughts, memories that your brain can make. I mean, an enormous number. Easily big enough to last you 10 lifetimes. And what's interesting about this number is that it's too small. They checked it again, and a man called Anokin, who was Pavlov's student, spent the last few years of his life, up until his 80s, about 10 years ago, working on this particular problem. Right? What actually happens in these amazing mazes, these incredible networks in your brain? How many patterns can you really make? And what he said was, after his research, and this was the last thing he said, he made a public television statement. He said, I've researched this problem for 10 years, and he said, the answer I've come up with is bigger than this number, and it's bigger than this number. The answer I've come up with, he said, is wrong. And it's wrong because it's too small. And it's too small because the brain is so amazing, so magical, so complicated, that we still don't have instruments clever, clear, and good enough to really unravel all its mysteries. He said, but there is no doubt that my number, this is Anokin's number, is minimally correct. In other words, you have at least as many patterns as I'm going to tell you. And he said, from my research, it seems that the brain is like an infinite universal symphony orchestra with millions of instruments and ranges of notes that go on forever. And he said the minimum number of brain cells and brain patterns that those cells can make is the following. Not 1 followed by 100 noughts, not 1 followed by 800 noughts. I suggest you have a new page for this number. This is your number of patterns. It's a big number, so turn to a new page for it. Not 1 followed by 100 noughts, 1 followed by 800 noughts, but 1, the number 1, followed by, right, this is the number of patterns that your brain can make. Your mum, your dad, your sister, your brother, your grandparents, your uncles, aunts, your friends. Number 1, followed by 10 million. The number 1 followed by 10 million miles. Of noughts. And that means ordinary, standard, little typewritten noughts. So the number of patterns your brain can make, and everyone else's brain can make, is not 1 followed by 100 noughts, not 1 followed by 800 noughts, these tiny little numbers. It's the number 1 followed by 10 million miles of noughts. And what Anokin and the other brain researchers are saying is that that is approaching what? Infinity. You've got it. And that is your memory, your creativity, your potential throughout life, your ability to learn. This is what you have to take with you. Next, what we're going to do is to explore how your brain processes all the information that goes into it. We know from the left and right that it processes words, numbers, lines, colors, images, daydreams, and so on. We know that it gets better as it gets older, but the question is, what actually happens inside your head when a word enters, when a color goes in, when a number goes in? So what I've drawn up here is a little round ball with many hooks, and this represents one piece of information, because what we're talking about now is information processing. That's the heading for your note. Information processing. And we're talking about the way your brain processes information. And one nice piece of news for you is that everybody in your family has a better brain than any living computer. Right? The computers at the moment are, in comparison to your brain, absolutely idiotic. You are the genius. The computer is a swift idiot. You are the genius. As one boy in one of my classes said, when somebody said, well, look, aren't you kind of afraid of computers of the future, you know, with all this power and so on? He says, why should I be? If I get afraid, I just pull out the plug. I mean, brain always is going to be superior to computers as we know them at the moment. So we want to talk about your brain and how it processes the information. The information that it processes is the key words we mentioned, key numbers, key pictures, key ideas, all the things that appear in a mind map, and all your senses. Every taste, every touch, every smell, every sight, every sound. That's what your brain has to process. And each one of these bits of information, each word, number, sight, sound, smell, is a little center in your brain with many hooks. And the hooks represent what in your mind? What do these hooks stand for? Ideas, associations, links. So you can put here, big keyword here would be associations. Again, it's that word that keeps on coming up, your brain linking things together. So associations. This word has already appeared, and it will appear again and again in the course, because your brain is an association organ. So that's the information about how your brain processes it. Little centers which link and connect. What we want to see now is how complex, how does it actually do it? And we're going to come back to this note, but before we do, we're going to play a game. You as a family are going to play a game. So I'd like you to turn to a new page. And in this game, you've got to be absolutely quiet. It'll be about the only time that we ask you to be absolutely quiet. And the reason why is we're going to be exploring your brain's associations, not the associations of the brain sitting next to you, not your mums or dads or brothers or sisters or uncles or aunts or grandparents. It's your associations we want. So in this particular game, do it absolutely silently until I ask you to start to do something else. So what I want you to do in silence from now on, first of all, is in the middle of your page, write the word love. L-O-V-E. Around that word, put a little outline. Outline that word. So put a little line around the whole word. Put it in the center, in other words. And then off that outline, I want you to put 10 hooks. 10 hooks. So you've got the word love in the middle, outline around it, and then off that outline, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hooks. Good. Now, still in silence, what I want you to do is write down as fast as you can the first 10 words that come into your brain when you think of the word love. And whatever those first 10 are, I want you to write at the end of each hook, and do it as fast as you can, and be as honest with yourself as you can. Whatever comes into your brain, whatever it is, put it down and fill up those hooks as fast as possible. So at the end of each hook, the first 10 words that come into your brain when you think love. Okay, now it doesn't matter if you haven't got 10. As long as you've got 5 or more, that's all we need. So don't add any more from now on. What you're going to do next is in your family groups, that can be groups of 3, 4, 5, 6, however many you are, you're going to give each other all your words. Now in this particular family's groups here, we'll use groups of 3 in which you're going to exchange. And what you're going to do is you're going to take turns to tell each other your words. So let's say I'm a member of the family, and I've got my 10 hooks around here, and I've got my words. Let's say my brother is reading his words. As he reads his words, I'm going to write his words outside mine in a different color, so that I have mine on the inside, my brother's in a different color on the outside. Then my mum might read, and I will say, don't, put them around outside my brother's words in a different color, so I have circles in different color of the words of all the members in my family. And each one of you will be doing that with everyone else. Now, one of the rules here is, if a word comes up which is the same as somebody else, you underline it. So if my brother has got cat, and I've got cat, I underline it, so I know that we too had the same word. Because what we want to try and find out is, which 2 people had the same words, which 3 people, if you're in groups of 4, which 4 people, and you only underline words if they're identical. If they're identical. If one of you has dog and the other one has rover, that's different, even though it may be the same dog. If one of you has dad and the other one has daddy, that's not the same. It's got to be exactly the same and spelt exactly the same to be underlined. Okay, so in your family groups now, each one of you give all the others your words, and when anybody is given their words, everybody else notes them down on their own page, so that at the end you all have everybody else's words and your own with the underlinings of the common ones. Okay, start that one now. Any interesting observations you have to make about your own group? Yes, Glenn? You all had friends, so each one of you had the word friends. Right? Any other, lots of common ones in your group?
We both, did you have sharing care?
Yeah.
We all three had sharing and caring.
Sharing and caring. You had 3 words common to all of you or common to 2? To 2. How about this group? Yes, Angie.
There's only 3 of them that were common to 2 and the rest were all different.
Only 3 common to 2 and the rest were all different. What about this group?
We had 1 common to 2.
1 common to 2 and all the rest different? So mostly different. It was supposed to be the same. An unusual group. Judy says. You're what?
We're only human.
You're only human. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, what do you expect? Bound to make a mistake, destroy the exercise.
Even watching this one.
Now, I can tell you that when I gave psychologists and educationists this test and said to them, if people did it, what would the result be? They did not say the result would be what this group has got. So either there is something wrong with this group, or there is something wrong with the predictions of the psychologists. Take your pick. Something wrong with the psychologists' predictions. And you are right. Because in every group that I've done around the world with these exercises, individuals come out differently. Right? You come out very differently from everybody else. Now what does that mean then when we come back to these associations? The associations in your brain are what? Different, personal, unique. Jot those words down. Different. Your associations are different. I'm just going to abbreviate up here. Personal. They are your associations. Personal. And unique. And that unique you should underline. Because if your associations are unique, then what are you? Unique. That's rather nice to be, isn't it? So we're now going to see how uniquely unique you are. How many associations in your brain at the moment, no matter how old you are, 5, 10, 15, 105, 115, how many associations do you think you have already used? How many connections are there in your brain on all the words you know, all the smells, all the touches, all the emotions, all the tastes, all the friends, all the fears, all the hopes? How many associations already used up in your brain? Millions? Too many to count? Yeah. It's an enormous number. Fantastic number. It's multiple trillions plus. So make a note of that. That's an important... That's how many you've already used up. And that is your memory. It is your brain's library. And it's multiple trillions plus. Does that mean you're smart or not smart? Smart. Does it mean your memory is good or bad? I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? When you start to think about it. It's not this kind of scruffy little thing that remembers a few things a day. Trillions and trillions of things all stored in there, connected and so on and so forth. And it can get them out really fast. For example, I'm going to get something out of your memory now, and it's got trillions of things in there, and I want you to see how fast it takes for your memory to get the piece of information that I'm going to ask you for. Okay? When I get this piece of information, you'll probably get a picture in your head. I want you to think, how long did it take after I said it for you to get it? In other words, you had to go through all your filing systems. How long does it take your brain? And the thing I want you to get out of your filing system in your brain is chocolate. How long did it take? Right away. Not even so. I mean, so fast you couldn't even see how fast it was. And you've got trillions of things, and it gets it just like that. You didn't get a pair of dirty old boots, did you? And the brain didn't say, chocolate. I wonder what that is. Let's go through the A's. No, no, not there. Let's go through the B's. No, not there. Go through the C's. No. C, C-A, no. C-H, yes. C-H, C-H-A, no. Didn't do that, did it? Just straight away. Out of trillions of things, and you had never heard that before. You'd never heard that word said in this voice, in that volume, in this light, with these colors, and yet your brain got it just like that. So it is phenomenal, both in terms of its capacity and number, and its speed. So you can put down here somewhere the word speed. Because it's fantastically fast. And if any one of you, in families, as an individual, can figure out how the brain does it, you get a Nobel Prize. I don't know it, Lou doesn't know it, nobody in the world yet really knows how our brain, your brain, does that. And it happens from the time of being baby to the time you're an elder, a wise person, a sage, or whatever. So, you've used up all that, then the serious question comes up, how many have you got left? How many remain? And this brings back to the reason why a lot of people won't learn anything new. They say, look, I've learned so much. Brain really is stuffed. Can't possibly get anything else in, so I'm not going to learn anything else. How many do you think you've got left, no matter how old you are? Yeah, Mark. Mark says infinite. It is just about that. It is plus, 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 multiple, multiple trillions. It's more than you've already used. And this, what you've got left, is your what? Potential. That's the word. This is your potential. And as Marx says, your potential approaches the infinite. So once again, if anybody's calling you stupid or dumb or thick, again you say, look, I'm just terribly sorry, but you're wrong, because I'm a genius. And here's more proof. And you've got proof after proof after proof that you, your family members, community members around you, your business colleagues, are hundreds, thousands of times smarter than we ever thought. Now we come back to this unique here. If you've got stones, minerals, valuable metals and so on and so forth, which are the most expensive ones? The rarest, right? How rare are you? Totally. You're the only one. There is not another single one like you. So if you are that unique, you are also what? Valuable. So you put down here, if you're that unique, you are valuable. And what about the people around you? They're valuable too, because they are also that unique. And in gems and stones, the ones which are really rare, they call what? Do you know what kind of stones they call them? Precious and priceless. Those are the two words. Precious, precious, priceless. So you can now start to think of yourself as you are, with a fantastic memory, a nearly infinite potential, a unique person which you are, more unique than you ever thought, precious and priceless. And so are the people around you. Now once you get that kind of understanding, all kinds of other things become easier. For example, if you're having disagreements within the family, what does it really mean in terms of this? You're having arguments and not understanding each other and all this kind of stuff. What does it mean in terms of this? Yeah?
Not linking together.
You're not linking together. Glenn, what were you going to say?
Differences.
Yeah. James said, you're not linking together. And that's all that happens. Doesn't mean one's necessarily right or wrong or good or bad. You're not linking together. And as Glenn says, you're different. Should you be different? Yes, by definition. And if you've got different members in the family, is that good or bad? I mean, it's great, isn't it? And people sometimes say, well, you know, I can't understand because the people in the family, you know, all the kids have gone to the same school, same situation, so on and so forth. But have they been in the same family? No. Because if you're, say, the 11-year-old second son, and you've got 2 older sisters, and an older brother, and a younger sister, and a younger brother, and a mum, and a dad, right? That's very different from being the youngest little baby, isn't it? Who's got all these big creatures hanging around, and a giant mum and a giant dad. Not the same family at all. So if you are in the same family, it's the same family, but you are very different within it. And so is everybody else different within it. And they'll be using different associations, different connections. Some of them will be interested in sports. Is that good or bad? It's fine. Some of them are going to be interested in music. Is that good or bad? Fine. Some of you are interested in art. Is that good or bad? Yes, it's fine. Right? Whatever you're interested in is fine. Because that's who you are, and you are unique, valuable, and precious. Now this also shows that if you want to remember, what kind of things should you do with your brain? If you want to start to remember things, do what? Review, which is going to make these associations more. Link, emphasize, mind map. This is part of the theory of mind maps, isn't it? I mean, a mind map is simply this, expanded with colors and images and so on and so forth. So it's going to help you memorize, help you create, help you understand your value, help you understand how you understand each other, help you understand how you don't understand each other, help you understand how you argue and disagree, and help you understand how you can come to agreements. You simply find the connections and understand that the person with whom you're disagreeing is also valuable, precious, priceless, unique. Just to give you one humorous example of that, on misunderstanding, and how the misunderstanding caused a lot of unhappiness and pain, but in the end, humor and happiness. In a Sunday school, 5-year-old children, they were asked to draw a picture from the Lord's Prayer. And this little girl, about 5 years old, drew this. It's a bit thicker. See if you can guess what this is. Picture from the Lord's Prayer. And that was it. And the Sunday school teacher looked at it and thought, that's not a picture from the Lord's Prayer. Held it up in front of the other 5-year-old children and said, look what this silly little girl's done. You know, we've asked for a picture from the Lord's Prayer and she's done that and it's wrong. And so the little girl cried, didn't want to go to Sunday school anymore. Parents were upset, everybody was upset. And they eventually investigated and asked her, you know, why she had done this picture if she was supposed to do something from the Lord's Prayer. She says, but it is. She said, this is a picture of God. Right? This is God, his feet and his eye and his hand, leading a snot into temptation. And think about it. What was going on in that little girl? This is a picture of God leading a snot into temptation. Right? One of the nicest pictures of God and a snot I've ever seen in my life. And the misunderstanding was simply because her associations were different on that little part in the Lord's Prayer which says, lead us not into temptation. And other people didn't understand her associations. So once you understand this, you understand yourself more, you understand understanding more, you understand misunderstanding more, you understand the members of your family more, and you understand that all of you are unique, valuable, precious, priceless. And when you've got all that organized, you can then start to work together in groups, you can learn, study, absorb information in a much more happy and complete and amazing way. Okay, we're going to continue now with how you can use these mind maps, these marvelous left and right brain photographs of your brain, and also going to review the laws and principles for how to do mind maps and make them better as you progress through life, and obviously help yourself and your family in all the different areas to which they apply. What we've done is an ideal mind map of the purposes of mind maps, the way in which you can emphasize things in mind maps, the association and links that you need to make in mind maps, the style that is necessary when you're building up a mind map, and the advantages of mind maps as a method of thinking. So we're going to start off. The center here is the artist Linda's idea from her mind of an image of a mind map. And it's got a mind with waves and rhythms and colors, all the things that the brain actually has. Then we have the first major branch, the purpose of mind maps. In other words, why do them? And while I'm talking about this, I'd like you as an individual and you as families to think of even more reasons and purposes than there are up here. There are many, many. These are some of the main ones. One of the first purposes of a mind map is recall. In other words, memory. Linda's drawn in here a little phone call. Recall. A mind map helps your memory because it uses the pictures, the colors, that helps your memory recall the things that it needs. If you just have lists and lines and no colors, it's harder to remember. So one purpose is memory. Next, this little symbol here means to improve and multiply your ability to study. So we've got a little study book here, science, mathematics, literature. Everything you study is improved if you mind map. If you make a mind map of your notes from your books, from your teachers, from school, from lectures, then you will multiply enormously the ability to remember what you studied, to understand, to get good marks. You will also multiply your creativity. We already showed in the original mind map example how your creativity goes on and on and on for literally as long as you want it to. Another major purpose is for planning. You can plan your day, your week. As a family, you can plan holidays. You can plan your school years, plan your essays and exams, all kinds of planning uses for mind maps. And again, see if you can think of more. You can solve problems with mind maps. If you've got a problem and it's worrying you and things are going around in your mind, put it down on a piece of paper in mind map form and you'll find it suddenly becomes clearer and the solution pops out in the mind map. Another purpose is this rainbow between the two brains, communication. If you want to communicate something really important and you haven't been able to, you can actually mind map it out and show it to your brother, your sister, your mum, your dad, your child, grandparent, aunt, uncle, friend, business colleague. And the mind map makes it clearer in the same way that it's easier for me to talk to you about this using Linda's mind map. Another use, of course, is for note-taking. Any kind of note-taking. From books, from lectures, from meetings, the mind map allows you to see clearly what's going on. And there are many, many other purposes. And as I say, you as individuals and families think of all the other purposes, uses to which you can put the mind map approach. Next main branch here is emphasis. Now, emphasis helps you remember. So when you're making notes and you want to remember, you need to have things emphasized. One of the ways of emphasizing, we've got here bread box, meaning size. So something important, put it in big letters or big picture, and your brain will remember it. Another way of making things stand out is to use colors. The more colors you use, the more your brain enjoys it, and the more things stand out in your memory and stand out in your creativity. This big D down here stands for dimension. If you make things look dimensional, they almost crawl off the page into your brain. And that means they're going to be remembered more, and you're going to be able to create more from them. The third main branch on these laws and applications of mind maps is association. As we mentioned, your brain thinks, creates, remembers, communicates by linking things together. And in your mind map, you can link by using lines, as we've done. You can link by using arrows. And you can have arrows going from one place to another. You can have arrows going back and forward. You can have arrows with 2 heads, 3 heads, 4 heads, all kinds of arrows to link things together in your mind map. Again, association, color. For example, if you have a word on one part of your mind map and the same word appears on another part of your mind map, you can put a little red circle by each word and your brain will immediately know that those two are linked because you've color coded. And this little picket fence, the last one in association, means fence in the branches. And as you fence in, as we discussed before, it gives them a special shape which enables you to remember and organize and structure more competently. Next, the 4th branch, style. The style of a mind map. Now, the simple overall rule in style is to use your entire brain. We put here some of the main things. We've got a camera and a center, and what that stands for is an image, a picture, in the center of the mind map. Center, picture. So an image always in the center. Next style, the mind map should branch out like a tree. And on the branches, you have your main ideas, main words, main pictures. So it's like a beautiful giant tree, a map of your own thoughts, words, pictures, and numbers. Another major point in the style is to use special keys, keys that unlock your memory, unlock your creativity. And you have key words that do that. You have key numbers that do that. Again, left brain, left brain. You have key images, signs that do that. Right brain. You have key codes. You can put in question marks, little stars, exclamation marks, triangles, which again, key your brain into the areas you want to remember, create, think about, and organize. Style also units, single words, single pictures on the line. It gives your brain more freedom. And each word and each picture then has all its hooks free to hook onto new keywords, new key images, new numbers. Here we have capitals. Notice that the words, especially near the center, are capital letters. Again, because it helps your brain photograph and remember the things you've written. Sometimes you can use the lowercase printing, and that will be for words which are near the end of the branches. You use capitals for the big important words near the center. And next, these two hand prints mean printing. So you print the words rather than writing them. If you write them, it's harder, as I said before, for your brain to sort out what the words say. This makes it easier to photograph. The last and 5th branch up here are the advantages of mind maps. Now again, I would like you to think, yourself, in your family, what are the advantages of mind maps over other techniques? I mean, we know that one of the advantages is using both sides of your brain, all your capacities, which is very important. Another advantage here is that they are fast. In preparing for an examination, you can prepare in something like 5 minutes a whole hour's answer. In preparing notes, you can summarize a whole book in maybe 2 hours instead of 2 years. So they are fast, and the way your brain works naturally is fast. They are personal. If you look around at the other mind maps that your family members make, you'll notice that each person's is different. And they should be, because each one of you is very different, and we're going to be discovering how different a little bit later. But the more personal your notes are, the more your brain will keep them inside, which means remember, the more you will enjoy them. Mind maps are also creative. They allow that creative ability of your brain freedom. So the more you do mind maps, the more free and the more creative your brain becomes. 4th advantage down here is the one I mentioned before, the balance these little scales here, the balance between the left and right brain. Instead of only making notes in blue, black and grey, and lines and numbers, now you can use your basic lines, numbers, words, and also your images, your imagination, your fantasy. Another advantage is that they are open-ended. And that means that once you've started, they keep on going and going and growing and growing until you decide to stop. Until you decide to stop. And what Linda has cleverly done here is said open and had a little chicken coming out of an egg, ended, and also put the end, because that's the end of this particular mind map that she was doing. But it's not the end of the mind maps that you're going to do, and it's not the end of you thinking about the purposes. Think of as many other purposes as you can. Think of other ways in which you can use emphasis to make your mind maps better. Think of other ways in which you can link and associate in your mind maps. Think of other things you can do in style to make your mind maps even better. And think of other advantages. And as you do that, help each other do it as well. In the family situation, if one of you is, for example, preparing for an exam, show the other people in your family your mind map, and then the family can help prepare the person who's going for the exam for the exam. If mum or dad have got a big project, the children can help. If you're going on holiday together, put an ideal picture of a holiday in the middle, and as a family, help each other plan the ideal holiday for all of you. So the rules on mind maps are clearly laid out here, and what I want you to do from now on is think of continuing ways of using them for yourself and of helping your family and your friends to do the same thing and improve them.